Shalom, welcome to Lessons in Tanya. We're about to begin Tanya chapter 5. Quick review of the 4 chapters we've covered so far. Chapter 1 we learned about the animal soul and the influence of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. In chapter 2 we learned about the divine soul and the influence of the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination. Chapter 3, what was chapter? Having a mental block. Chapter 3, we learned about, the anatomy of the soul and the division between the mind and the emotions in the 10 Sephirot. Chapter 4, excuse me. Trying to keep up my voice here. In chapter 4, we learned about the Torah and the garments of the soul, the 3 garments of the soul, and how the Torah is a garment for our soul in what we speak, in what we think, and in what we do. It's 3 expressions of our soul, and how the Torah is part of the outward expression when we wear the Torah as a garment. The Torah then expresses itself in our speech and in our actions and in our thoughts. This is in an outward expression to a certain extent, but in chapter 5 we're going to learn how the Torah is also like food. Okay, in the sense that the Torah is a garment, it is an outer light, but in the sense that it is food, it is like an inner light. And we have the saying, you are what you eat, and the Torah is our allegorical food. That is the topic of chapter 5. Begin chapter 5. Let us explain further and fully elucidate the expression tefisa, apprehension, in the words of Elijah, no thought can apprehend thee. Now when an intellect conceives and comprehends a concept with its intellectual faculties, this intellect grasps the concept and encompasses it. The concept is in turn grasped, enveloped, and enclosed within that intellect which conceived and comprehended it. In other words, when we truly understand something and it becomes da'at, knowledge in us, it actually becomes part of our thinking. It becomes, we know it, it's part of us now. Okay? You can tell somebody that 1 + 1 = 2 or that 2 + 2 = 4. But once they understand it, and they comprehend it, the idea that 2 + 2 = 4 becomes a part of them, a part of their actual programming, their own thinking. They don't have to learn it again. They don't have to see it again. They already understand why 2 + 2. They fully comprehend it. So when we fully comprehend something, it actually becomes added to who we are. It becomes part of our soul. The mind, for its part, also clothed in the concept at the time it comprehends and grasps it with the intellect. For example, when a person understands and comprehends fully and clearly any halakha in the Mishnah or Gemara, his intellect grasps and encompasses it, at the same time is clothed within it. Consequently, as the particular halakha is, the wisdom and will of Elohim, for it was his will that when, for example, Reuven plays in one way and Shimon in another, the verdict as between them shall be thus and thus. And even should such litigation never have occurred, nor would ever present itself for judgment in connection with such disputes and claims, nevertheless, since it has been the will and wisdom of the Holy One, blessed be He, that in the event of a person pleading this way and another pleading that way, the verdict shall be such and such. Now therefore, when a person knows and comprehends with his intellect such a verdict in accordance with the Torah as it is set out in the Mishnah and Gemara, or the Posachim, the decrees, the codes, he has thus comprehended and grasped and encompassed with his intellect the will and wisdom of the Holy One, blessed be He, whom no thought can grasp, nor his will and his wisdom, except when we are clothed in the laws which have been set out for us. Simultaneously, the intellect is also clothed in them, the divine will and wisdom. Okay. Excuse me. What is this saying? It is saying that when a situation is proposed in the Mishnah or the Gemara, in resolving a dispute about what the halacha is from the Torah in a certain situation. Reflecting back on my Talmud for Beginners class in lesson 1. If you're taking that class, this will all be familiar with you. If you've watched the video, if you haven't watched the video, then I'll explain this such that you'll understand. In the Mishnah in Tractate Nedarim 9.1, there is a dispute over how to deal with a situation in which one has made a vow that dishonors one's parents. And the problem that we have is, on the one hand, the Torah tells us to keep our vows. Okay, so we have one mitzvah that says, keep your vows. We have another mitzvah that says to honor your parents. So now we're presented with a situation where a person has a vow, but keeping the vow will dishonor his parents. What do we do? How do we resolve the dispute? And so the dispute then is dealt with in the Mishnah and the Gemara of Talmud, and a resolution is given. And so when we study Talmud, we study out all the arguments that were presented, at least. We present the minority opinion, the minority opinion, the reasoning. We are engrossing ourselves in this study of Torah. And what Rabbi Zalman is telling us is that we're actually not just, yes, it may seem like it's a very mundane thing that we are studying in this section of Talmud that may be dealing with something that seems very abstract and dry. But in reality, we're studying the mind of Elohim. And so we have this mitzvah, and we have a situation where the two mitzvahs seem to conflict with each other, and we're trying to understand the Torah better, we're trying to understand Elohim better. We're trying to understand the mind of Elohim better. And so when we are studying the Mishnah and the Gemara and their treatment of the Torah, and we're trying to come to an understanding of this and comprehend Torah through Mishnah and Gemara, when we really understand the whole thing, when we're done in theory, now there are a lot of cases where a situation is, a dispute is unresolved or a matter is left unresolved in the Talmud. But where a matter is resolved, and of course you have to understand from Zalman's point of view, the Talmudic resolution is it. But at any rate, it really doesn't matter to the concept here. When we study out the resolution, we understand the Torah better. Therefore, we understand Elohim better. In fact, we should understand it so well as to be able to see the situation so clearly as to say that there never really should have been a dispute in the first place. In other words, when it's all said and done, we should say, I see now, it's so clear. And then we should, we should even be able to think at that point, I can see it so clearly now. Why was there a dispute in the first place? Of course, it's this way or that way. But what this means for us is that we're understanding the mind of Elohim, and therefore we can see it as Elohim sees it. Okay. Continuing in Tanya. This is a wonderful union, like which there is none other, and which has no parallel anywhere in the material world, whereby complete oneness and unity from every side and angle could be attained. So what the Tanya is telling us here is, if you want union with the mind of Elohim, study Torah. Study Torah. Understand Torah. Make Torah knowledge a part of yourself. And if you do, you will be bringing the mind of Elohim into yourself. And when you bring the mind of Elohim into yourself, you are at unity with Elohim. You are one with Elohim. Your thoughts are his thoughts. You are in tune with Elohim. You are resonating with Elohim. This is the ultimate devakus, the ultimate devakut, the ultimate cleaving to Yahweh. It is unity. Okay. Hence the special superiority, infinitely great and wonderful, that is in the commandments of knowing the Torah and comprehending it over all the commandments involving action, and even those related to speech, and even the commandment to study the Torah, which is fulfilled through speech. For through all the commandments involving speech or action, the Holy One, blessed he clothes the soul and encompasses it from head to foot with the divine light. However, with regard to the knowledge of Torah, apart from the fact that the intellect is clothed in the divine wisdom is also contained in it, to the extent that his intellect comprehends and grasps and encompasses as much as it is able to do, each person according to as is able, of the knowledge of the Torah, every man according to his intellect, his knowledge capacity, and his comprehension imparts. So, what it's saying is it's a wonderful thing when we understand Torah. When we take the wisdom of Torah, we subject it to understanding, and it becomes knowledge. We go through this kabod process with the Torah, and it becomes a part of us. It's a beautiful thing, because this is more than just the clothing ourselves with the Torah, which is the outward light. But with the mind, we can do something that can't be done with the thoughts. It can't be done with the speech and with the action. The Torah can actually be inside us, so that there's an inner light, and that inner light actually becomes part of us, and we part of it. And each man can do this to whatever degree is possible for him, to whatever degree his intellect allows him to comprehend Torah on whatever level he's able to comprehend it. Okay? And by the way, none of us are able to fully comprehend Torah, because none of us have the infinite mind to fully comprehend Ein Sof. Since in the case of the knowledge of the Torah is clothed in the soul and the intellect of a person and is absorbed in them, it is called bread and food for the soul. For just as the physical bread nourishes the body, as it is absorbed internally in his very inner self, where it is transformed into blood and flesh of his flesh, whereby he lives and exists, so too is it with the knowledge of the Torah and its comprehension of the soul, by the soul of the person who studies it well, with the concentration of his intellect until the Torah is absorbed by his intellect and is united with it, and they become one. This becomes nourishment for the soul and its inner life from the giver of life, the blessed Ein Sof, which is clothed in his wisdom and in his Torah. They're absorbed in it, in the soul. In other words, when we really comprehend Torah and it becomes knowledge, we are one with the Torah. We can't do that. Clothing ourselves with the Torah is one thing, but this is really special. This is internal. This is changing who we are and becoming at one with the Torah, at one with the mind of Yahweh, and therefore at one unity with Yahweh. This is the meaning of the verse. Yes, your Torah is within my inward parts. It is stated in Etz Chaim, Portal 44, chapter 3, that the garments of the soul in Gan Eden are the commandments, while the Torah is the food for the soul, which during life on earth has occupied themselves in the study of the Torah for its own sake. Notice that we study the Torah for its own sake. This brings us back to the first Hasidic teacher, if you will, the first restorer of Hasidism, Antigonus of Soka, who said that we observe the Torah not as one who is trying to earn something, not as one who is seeking a reward, but one with no thought of a reward. In other words, for its own sake. It is similarly written in the Zohar, as for the meaning for its own sake, it is studied with the intent to attach one's soul to Elohim through the comprehension of the Torah, each one according to his intellect, as explained in Peri Etz Chaim. In other words, the Torah is not a path to, it's not a way to earn salvation. Rather, we study the Torah in order to become one with Elohim, to cleave to Elohim, to become so close to Elohim as to become one with Elohim. That has a reaction in us because it changes who we are, and it reflects then in what we say and what we do and what we think. It results then in a natural awe of Elohim, and which causes us to keep the commandments, the negative commandments, to not violate the negative commandments, and it also a love of Elohim that makes us, inclines us to keep the positive commandments. By the way, this goes back to Ramban, and go back and maybe want to go back and re-listen to lesson 1. We may go back over it if we have time today. Ramban and his teaching that the Yetzer Ra is basically nullified in the days of the Messiah by a natural inclination to keep the Torah, and we'll talk about that. This is what Tanya is teaching us. The food of the soul is the nature of inner light, while the garments are in the nature of encompassing light. Therefore, our rabbis of blessed memory have said, the study of the Torah equals all of the commandments, for the commandments are but garments, whereas the Torah is both food as well as garment. For the rational soul in which a person is clothed during learning and concentration, all the more so when a person also articulates by word of mouth, for the breath emits in speaking, the words of the Torah become something in the nature of an encompassing light, as explained in Peri Etz Chaim. Okay, that's the end of chapter 5 of Tanya, but I want to explore this idea some more. Ramban says, In the Talmud, in Sukkot 52a, there is an interesting conflict that comes up. There is interestingly, this is in a discussion. Let me just go grab the Talmud real quick. In Sukkah 52 in the Babylonian Talmud, it'll take me just a moment to find the passage here, but it's in Tractate Sukkah. Page 52a. I should have probably prepared for this, but it didn't occur to me until I started teaching this passage. Okay, well, unfortunately this edition of the Talmud is the only one that I have here with me, and unfortunately it's, oh, here we are, 55b. The pages, according to the tradition, 53b, I think I'm getting there. No, that's 48b. Well, no wonder, I'm in Tractate Yoma. Okay. I thought this was going to be fairly easy to find, and it would be if I was looking at the right tractate. Okay, Tractate Yoma. Tractate Sukkah, 52a. Okay, there is a discussion and a dispute here over the meaning of a passage in Zechariah chapter 12. Yes. With regard to, and the land shall mourn every family apart, the family of the house of David apart with their wives and apart. Zechariah 12:12. What was the reason for the mourning to which reference is made in Zechariah's statement? Rabbi Dosa said the rabbis differed on this matter. And Rabbi Dosa and the rabbis differed on this matter. One said it is an account of the Messiah, the son of Joseph, who was killed. Okay, so Rabbi Dosa says that the mourning that takes place in Zechariah 12:12 is as a result of the death of the Messiah. Messiah ben Yosef, the suffering servant Messiah. And the other said, it is on account of the evil inclination which was killed. And so there's a whole section here in Talmud that then discusses this debate. But in fact, there is an argument to be made that they are both right. That in fact, the death of the Messiah is in fact Messiah ben Yosef in Zechariah 12:10 is in fact what is being discussed. Through that, the death and the destruction of the Yetzer Ra. This concept of the Yetzer Ra is in fact destroyed through the Messiah. Okay, well, let's see if I can quickly find here the quote. Yes, here we go, from Ramban. We discussed this before. Ramban, in his commentary to the Torah, in Deuteronomy 29:6, says, "And Yahweh your Elohim will circumcise your heart." It is this which the rabbis have said, if someone comes to purify himself, they assist him from on high. The verse assures you that you will return to him with all your heart and with all your, he will help you. The following subject is very apparent from Scripture, since from the time of creation, man has had the power to do as it pleased, to be righteous or wicked. This grant of free will applies likewise to the entire Torah period, so that people can gain merit upon choosing good and punishment for preferring evil. But in the days of the Messiah, the choice of preferring their genuine good will be natural. The heart will not desire the improper, and it will not have no craving whatsoever for it. This is the circumcision mentioned here, for lust and desire are the foreskin of the heart, and the circumcision of the heart means that it will not covet or desire evil. This is the process that is being discussed here in Tanya. Man will return at that time to what has been before the sin of Adam, when by his nature he did what should properly be done, and there was no conflicting desires in his will, as I have explained in Seder Bereshit. Again, this is what Tanya is teaching. And it is this which Scripture states in the book of Jeremiah, "Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant I made with their fathers," etc. "But this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Eternal. I will put my Torah in their inward parts." And this is what chapter 5 of Tanya is discussing. Having the Torah in our inward parts. And in their heart I will write it. This is a reference to the annulment of the Yetzer Ra, the evil inclination, and to the natural performance by the heart of its proper function. Therefore Jeremiah said further, "And I will be their Elohim, and they will be my people, and they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his mother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they shall all know me, from least of them to the greatest of them." Now it is known that the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. This is the Yetzer Ra, and it is necessary to instruct them. But at that time it will not be necessary to instruct them to avoid evil, for their evil instinct will then be completely abolished. And so it is declared by Ezekiel, "A new heart will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will cause you to walk in my statutes." The new heart alludes to man's nature, and the new spirit to his desire and will, as it is which our rabbis have said, "And the years draw near when you shall say, I have no pleasure in them. These are the days of the Messiah, as they will offer opportunity neither for merit nor for guilt. For in the days of the Messiah there will be no evil desire, no evil inclination in man, but he will naturally perform the proper deeds, and therefore there will be neither merit nor guilt in them, for merit and guilt are dependent upon desire." So the Torah will change us and change who we are in our innermost parts. And Ramban directly ties this to the Messiah. As we can see, if we take Rabbi Dos's view in Sukkot 52a and we bring it together with the view of the majority, I think we can see that there is a direct tie between the death of the Messiah and the destruction of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. Okay, I also want to bring this forward a bit into the idea of having the Torah within us and the idea of also having the Messiah within us. You know, the Messiah at the his last Passover Seder, he took the bread and the wine and he said, "This is my body, this is my blood, and drink this." And he also said it was the covenant, the new covenant, and he said, "Drink it and eat it." And of course, some people kind of go ballistic and think he's talking cannibalism, and then you have the Roman Catholics who say that it becomes literally becomes flesh and blood. Yuck! It is not. It's allegory. It is allegory. It is allegory by which the Messiah, who is the Torah, then becomes bread and wine that we ingest and becomes part of us. And this is very much in keeping with what the Tanya and the Zohar is teaching. Okay, let's look at Isaiah chapter 64, verse 3. It says, "And wherefore from old men have not heard, nor perceived by ear, neither has eye seen an Elohim beside you, who works for him that waits for him." Now there's a bereta to this passage that appears twice in the Babylonian Talmud. It also appears several times in the Zohar and also in the Midrash Rabbah. The bereta says, "What is the meaning of eye has not seen?" Referring to Isaiah 64:3. What is it that the eye hasn't seen? What is it? Rabbi Joshua ben Levi said, "This is the wine that has been kept in its grapes from the 6 days in the beginning." So, wine that has been kept in its grapes from the time of creation. This is called the Yayin HaMeshumar. The wine that has been kept. Very, very important concept in Kabbalah, in Zohar, in Judaism, Yayin HaMeshumar, the wine that has been kept. And we're going to talk about what that is, but let us notice that in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, Paul makes the same analogy, if you will, to the same. He appeals to the same bereta. A bereta, if you're not, maybe you may not know what a bereta is if you're taking my Talmud class. A bereta is a tradition, an oral tradition from the Mishnaic period that is not in the Gemara. I mean, it's in the Gemara, but it is not found in the Mishnah itself. Sometimes it's from the Tosefta, sometimes it's from the Halachic Midrashim, sometimes it doesn't appear in any of them. Note that Paul's side, Paul says this, "But as it is written, the eye has not seen, nor the ear has not heard, into the heart of a son of man, and into the heart of a son of man it has not entered, that which Eloah has prepared for those who love him." So Paul cites the same passage. Notice the phrase, "prepared for those who love him." And in the Midrash, moving on, 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 7 through 9. "And a mystery that was hidden, and that Eloah has before separated from before the ages for our glory, that not one of the authorities of this world knew. For if they had known it, they would not have crucified the Adon of glory as it is written, the eye has not seen, and the ear has not heard, and into the heart of a son of man it has not entered, that which Eloah has prepared for those who love him. It's referring to the same Yayin HaMeshemar that the Beraita refers to. And it's interesting, Paul says, a mystery that was hidden, and that Eloah has before separated from the ages. It says, eye has not seen, but he says a mystery that was hidden, and that Eloah has has before separated from before the ages, and that then he says, which Eloah has prepared for those who love him. This is almost identical to the wording of the Beraita, which says, this is the wine that has been kept in its grapes from the 6 days in the beginning. So Paul is referring to the same Beraita. And this is what Yeshua is referring to when he says when he says, "This is my blood of the covenant." Okay, the Yayin HaMeshemar. A lot more of my notes here, but we can't cover everything. Okay, the Zohar says about the Yayin HaMeshemar in Ro Mahimna on Pinchas, says the Zadik, the righteous man, the righteous one, is the Yesod, the foundation, in Yah, the mystery, the Sod, which is the wine which has been kept in its grapes from the 6 days of in the beginning. So both the Zohar and Paul describe this as a mystery, a sod. Paul goes on to further say this, starting in verse 10, 1 Corinthians chapter 2. But Eloah has revealed it to us by his Spirit, for the Spirit searches into everything, even the deep things of Eloah. For who is the Son of Man who knows what is in the Son of Man, except the Spirit of the Son of Man that is in him? So also that which is in Eloah no man knows except the Spirit of Eloah. Now we have not received the spirit of the world, but the Spirit that is from Eloah, so that we might know the gifts that were given to us from Eloah, which, by the way, in chapter 12, he will categorize as 9 manifestations that fall under the 3 garments that Tanya has spoken of. Which also we speak not in the teaching of words of the wisdom of the sons of men, but in the teaching of the Spirit, and to spiritual men we compare spiritual things. For the Son of Man who is in the Nephesh does not receive spiritual things, in other words, in the animal soul, does not receive spiritual things, for they are foolishness to him, and he is not able to know that which is judged spiritually. Now the spiritual man judges all things, and is not judged from man, for he who knows the mind of Yahweh, that he might instruct him. Isaiah 13. But we have the mind of Messiah. Again, this is 1 Corinthians 2, verses 10 through 16. We have the mind of Messiah. What is the mind of Messiah? The Torah in our inward parts, the Yayin HaMeshemar, the wine that has been kept in its grapes from the foundation. By the way, the Messiah is the lamb that was slain from the foundation, the wine that has been kept in its grapes since the beginning. And this is wine because we ingest it and it becomes part of us. Also the Passover bread. I want to cover that real briefly here. In Genesis chapter 18, it is said that there's a story in which 3 men come and visit Abraham and Sarah, and Sarah makes cakes for the 3 men. Genesis 18 verses 1 through 6. According to Philo, in his on the birth of Abel, 15:59 through 60, the Torah, This word cakes literally means in the Greek secret cakes. Okay? And later on the birth of Abel, in 1661 through 62, he points out that these secret cakes are the same as the unleavened bread that's eaten at Passover. Okay? So, when we have Passover, we have 3 unleavened breads, three pieces of matzah, 3 pieces of unleavened bread. These 3 pieces of unleavened bread represent the 3 pillars of the Godhead. Okay? They represent the 3 men that came to him. In Philo's writings, these 3 men represent the 3 pillars of the Godhead, with the middle one representing the Word. We can see that in his On Abraham, 121b through 122a, and count the X's here, 36-06. Okay. So these 3 men were 3 aspects of Elohim, a triad he calls, and the middle one is called the Word. Okay? The Zohar says that these 3 men that came to see Abraham represent Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's on volume 1, page 98b of the Zohar. Now, it's absurd that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob visited Abraham. That's not what it's saying. What it is saying is it's an allegory. What it means is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the Zohar and in the Bahir, page 1, section 190 in the Bahir, the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob represent the 3 pillars of the Godhead: Chesed, Gevarah, and Tiferet. Okay, so the 3 pillars of the Godhead. The 3 pillars of the Godhead are the Etz Chaim. It's the same thing that we've been talking about here. The Son of Yah being the middle pillar of the Godhead, being the outflowing of the Da'at into the 7 lower Sephirot, and the whole tree then being the knowledge of Elohim and the love and awe for Elohim that results from it. And that when we partake of the Passover Seder, we partake of the 3 matzahs, we are partaking of, allegorically, this incarnation of the Torah in the Messiah as it becomes part of us. Okay? So, that's it for Tanya chapter 5. Tanya chapter 5 teaches us that as we continue our study of Tanya, when the wisdom of Torah becomes into the womb of our understanding and gestates and gives birth to knowledge of Torah within us, this knowledge of Torah within us in our mind is food for our soul, and it becomes the Torah then is food to us. It becomes ingested, and it becomes actually a part of us, just as when we eat, the nourishments from that food become part of us. And so we actually achieve a unity with Elohim, because the Torah is the mind of Elohim expressed to us, or as Paul says, the mind of Messiah in 1 and 2 Corinthians. It is the Yayin HaMeshular and the three matzahs. It is the food for our soul, and becomes part of our inward parts, and then therefore results in a natural desire to observe Torah within us. Okay, that's it for Tanya chapter 5. I hope that you will join us again when we continue our study of Tanya in Tanya chapter 6. Until then, Shalom.